Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome back to Season 12 of Shameless Cashgrab, a season that is oddly similar to the experience of having been watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds. There are currently only 2 episodes left in Season 3 as I record this, and I've commented before, and I stand by this, that I think Strange New Worlds had possibly the best pilot of the entire Star Trek franchise. Season 1 was really great. Season 2 was pretty good. There are a couple episodes there that I have kind of lessened my opinion on since it aired. Season 3 has been kind of, at best, it's fine. The last episode, 4.5 Vulcans, was just horrible. But the reason I'm saying this is because it perfectly mirrors the experience of this season so far, because we started out with a pretty good one. Has anybody seen My Gal? Is a movie that was so well done, it got me of all frickin' people, to care about an oil and lumber baron. So that is why I'm glad the season is more than half over, and I have very low expectations for our next movie, which is called A Very Special Favor. Let me go ahead and take a look at the plot here. Okay, Rock is playing an attorney this time. And, okay, dating opposing counsel's daughter. Okay, a legal comedy. Well, those can be good. I mean, Jesus. My Cousin Vinny is one of the best movies ever made. So, I doubt A Very Special Favor is going to be on the level of My Cousin Vinny, but hey, what is?
So I have now watched A Very Special Favor from 1965. Plot summary courtesy of Rotten Tomatoes. Notorious womanizer and oil baron Paul Chadwick, Rock Hudson, wins a legal case in Paris by charming the female judge, which infuriates the opposing lawyer, Michel Boulard. Boulard then asks Chadwick for a favor in exchange for not exposing his shenanigans. Chadwick is to seduce Boulard's estranged daughter, Lauren, a domineering Freudian psychologist, that's what's actually in the summary, in order to break her engagement to a milquetoast suitor. Things soon spin out of control. I try to go into movies as blind as possible, but the internet being what it is, sometimes you see things. And one thing I saw when I was looking up plot summaries for this film is that apparently Rock Hudson himself hated this movie. If that plot summary is any indication, I'm probably going to agree with him, but let's see where this goes. I imagine my lack of enthusiasm at the start of this segment probably already gave that away, but at least the opening title sequence is well done. The hand-drawn and live-action elements blend together well enough, and the music is decent. Kind of wish there had been more of it, actually. The animation part largely stops once the champagne bottle starts pouring. And before we see any characters or get any dialogue, of course we see the Eiffel Tower, because the first act of this movie is set in France, don't you know? Well, first act, prologue. Who cares? When we're introduced to our main character, he's making out with a blonde woman in what has got to be one of the worst composite shots I have ever seen, and considering I don't think I've ever mentioned composite shots in any of the 91 prior movies I've watched for this show, that really tells you something. We follow our lead character, whom I shall refer to as Paul, because that's his name. We follow him into the courtroom, and it's the case from the plot summary, so I don't really need to spend much time on it. And apparently the movie felt the same way, because we go from the judge walking in to everybody leaving the courtroom. It was a civil case, by the way, in case anyone was interested. I doubt anybody was interested. We join Paul and Boulard, the opposing lawyer from the summary, on a passenger jet on the way to America. Once at the airport, Paul does a trick, calling 2 women at the same time that I'm pretty sure wouldn't work in real life, but whatever. It involves 2 payphones that he dials about the same time. Anyway. Boulard catches him doing this, adding fuel to the blackmail fire we already know is coming. Boulard meets up with a friend after Paul departs. We get some backstory on Boulard here, and it doesn't really seem to be his fault, but he still feels like he could have done more to stay connected to his daughter. I really wrote that. Yeah, okay. The more I learn about this guy, the more I think maybe it was his fault. But anyway, It's a nice enough scene on its own, up until the subject of his daughter being single came up. I was kind of liking this guy until he started talking about being worried that his daughter wasn't married yet when she's almost 30. By your own admission there, bud, you don't have much of a relationship with her beyond birthday and Christmas presents in the mail, so maybe stay in your lane? Nah, well, you can't do that because then we wouldn't have a movie. We fade cut to Lauren, that's Bullard's daughter, or rather, her name on the door of her office. Her father arrives and sits down in the waiting room with a man who turns out to be her fiancé. He, the fiancé, doesn't know that this is her father when they talk, and the subject of them deciding not to have children comes up, and this movie is from 1965, so we all know this is going to be portrayed as a bad thing. The guy is a bit of a doormat, so I guess I won't feel too bad when the movie ends, exactly the way I'm sure we all know it will, but honestly, the way Lauren is being portrayed, I'm not sure she really wants to be in a relationship at all, and is only doing it because of societal pressures. Bullard complains to his friend, and yes, we haven't actually seen or heard from our main character in a while, I noticed that too. After the scene between Bullard and his friend, Bullard goes to see Paul, and the plot summary already told us where this is going, although it sure takes its sweet time getting there. This is the second movie this season where the saying, "this meeting could have been an email," keeps rolling through my head. And the dialogue in it... Ugh. None of the movies this season have been what one might call enlightened when it comes to gender politics, gender roles, and whatnot. Not even the one I liked, but at least that one had enough going for it that the more iffy elements weren't, they didn't ruin it for me. Although, I would not tell anyone who was bothered enough by it to not enjoy the movie that they're wrong. This is all subjective stuff here. But, this movie, oh God. This is like watching a Connery-era Bond movie, only worse because at least Bond movies would have action set pieces to break up all the sexism. This movie is just fucking relentless. How, in 1965, decades before Reddit ever existed, was someone able to make r/Are the Straights Okay, the movie? There is a sliver of a good moment in this whole slog. At one point, Bullard shows Paul a picture of Lauren as a child to try and convince him to go along with this plan, to which Paul glares at him and goes, "Do you have anything more recent?" Like, damn, that was downright respectable. Good on you, Paul. And no, Bullard not having a more recent picture on hand is not an excuse. Granted, none of this is okay, but that's just hands down the grossest thing he could have done. But even after this, Bullard, just keeps going on and on about his daughter's looks, and I'm starting to think that even Donald Trump would tell him to take it down to a 7 at this point. Wait, no, of course he wouldn't. Who am I kidding? He won't release the list because he's on the list. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Anyway, a mild chuckle involving an answering machine, or whatever its 1960s equivalent was, yada yada. Our two main characters finally speak for the first time at 29 minutes in. Paul starts acting awkward for no reason all of a sudden, and it doesn't even make sense as a gag, let alone for the story. We cut to a group therapy session, and Paul has managed to get in it somehow, and I think it hits me what exactly is wrong with this. Well, this part. Anyway, there's a lot of things wrong with this movie. I am not going to have time to get into it all. Paul is acting like he's already in love with Lauren, even though they've spent pretty much no time together. And in fact, he was behaving like this before he even called her office the first time. Did the movie just sort of forget to include some crucial scenes? I'm not sure how, since this movie has a runtime of 1 hour and 44 minutes, which is about 45 minutes too long for a rom-com, but I already went off on that in the Man's Favorite Sport episode. The rest of the group leaves, and Paul and Lauren are alone in the office, and he brings up the fact that women keep throwing themselves at him, which they have on and off throughout the movie, so that isn't a lie. But he lies to Lauren by saying that this bothers him, and makes up a dead high school girlfriend, and it's a really tasteless story, which would have put me off the movie, but thankfully I was already not enjoying it. It goes on and on like this, and I'm honestly kind of worried about repeating myself here because I feel like the contempt I have for this movie is equal to what I had for the last one. Though at least Strange Bedfellows was shorter. There's a knockoff Shriner convention. Paul ends up at Lauren's apartment at one point, but the movie's not quite half over yet, so not for that. Lauren's fiance meets Paul here, yada yada. Paul tries to back out of the plan. First smart thing he's done since the plot started. There's some negging going on here. The fiance's mother is in town, and how is there still 45 minutes left of this stupid thing? And then things get even more uncomfortable, which for this movie is saying a lot, when Paul allows Lauren to think they slept together while she was blackout drunk. They didn't, thank goodness. This movie manages to steer clear of that chasm of yikes. But still, this is just so cringy, it actually hurts. And of course, Ballard is thrilled about all of this, though I hope he doesn't know all the details, just that his daughter is getting out more. Actually, now that I think about it, cringe is inadequate. This is just downright offensive. And it just keeps going. You know, I don't know exactly why it is that Rock Hudson considered this one of, if not the worst of his movies, because I didn't bother to look it up. But whatever the reason, I bet he was right. Ballard sees Lauren again and finally tells her he's her father, yada yada. Ballard kind of reveals the plot, but of course leaves out his own role in it. We still have more than 30 fucking minutes, just end. Ballard's friend calls him out on his hypocrisy, which I didn't expect, but it doesn't really amount to anything. The fiance's mother recognizes Lauren from the couple of times Paul was carrying her drunk unconscious body, and she falls down an elevator shaft, but she's fine. The fiance's mother falls down an elevator shaft, but she's fine. Just roll with it. There's another character here named, Vicky or Nikki or something. I don't care, but she's in the final act a lot for some reason. Lauren decides to mess with Paul for revenge. It works. We upgrade from casual sexism to casual misogyny, and yes, they are different. Thanks to a cab driver. A one-scene character says the line, "It's like a bad movie, and buddy, don't you know it." But the sequence is still not over because I guess I did something horrible in a previous life. This whole bit feels like an incel version of 1776, the musical. Also, drunk driving played for laughs. Fuck this movie. Paul shows up at Lauren's place drunk and passes out on top of her piano. And there's still like 15 minutes left, and I'm wondering if maybe I should start doing reaction videos to r/Am I the Asshole on Reddit instead of talking about movies. Seems to be working out okay for YouTubers like Jamie Dodger and One Topic, The Click, and this show was a mistake. Ballard comes back into the picture, and once again his friend is the sole voice of reason, so naturally, Ballard throws him under the bus to help Paul again, after previously helping to break him. Yada yada, and now Ballard is talking about bringing children into it as, and I am quoting here, part of the revenge. Paul's revenge against Lauren for getting revenge against him for events that Ballard set in place in the fuck this movie. Fuck this movie! Okay. I don't merely hate Ballard now, I want to see him die. So, Paul tries to trick Lauren into following him for something I've kind of tuned out at this point. He does this by convincing Vicky? I think it's actually Vicky. Anyway, he convinces her to cut her hair short and gets her a custom-tailored business suit in order to make Lauren think he's running off with another man. Okay, I think I finally figured out why Rock Hudson hated this movie. Wait, okay, never mind. It's Mickey, not Vicky. Why did it take so many times for the movie to have her name be understandable? Oh, forget it. Anyway, just... Okay, fuck it. We all know this movie ends with Paul and Lauren getting together after some casually homophobic jokes, of course, and then we end them. Oh, no. We end the movie with Paul and Lauren having kids. 6 of them. And no effort is made to make the actors for Paul, Lauren, or Ballard look even a little bit older than the previous scene, and why do I taste pennies? Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. Props to the casting department for remembering that non-white French people exist. I had no idea when I wrote that thought that that was going to be the highest praise that this movie was going to get. 2. I think this movie and the last one used the same airport set, but I'm not going to look it up. 3. There are so many bad jokes in this movie that I didn't bother writing down in the notes because I was worried it would make the episode almost an hour long. 4. There is one bit of dialogue that on paper could work, but you would need totally different characters saying it for totally different reasons. As it stands here, Rock Hudson's delivery is the flimsy thread that's expected to hold it up. The exchange goes, "Such a man is hard to find," to which the reply is, "I will be if you give me a 10-minute head start." If I liked either of these characters, that would have made me laugh. But alas. And 5. This movie really wants us to think that what Ballard is doing makes perfect sense, not because it's logical, but because he's French. Final verdict. If I were only judging the movies this season on their opening title sequences, this one would be a strong contender for the top spot. Maybe not a lock, but it would be close. Sadly, there's the whole rest of the movie to consider. To summarize, what is wrong with this movie exactly? Well, I'm only afraid to call it now that this is the worst in set movie because we still have one more after this, and I've been tempting fate a lot lately, haven't I? How have we fallen so far? This set started out so strong, and yet by the time we got past the second entry, it was already going downhill. It's like watching Heroes all over again. Anyway, our next movie, and the last one for this season, is a movie called Blindfold. I can't put into words why that title concerns me, but it's almost over, folks, and then we'll get to season 13, which it's going to present all its own problems. I just want to go ahead and say right now, before I reveal what the set is, I bought it before the election, so yeah, next movie, Blindfold. Then we'll have the season wrap up and all of that. And just have fun, stay safe, and don't fucking watch this movie.